world of dangerous possibilities, how often are we face to face with monsters and the evils of society, but are too ignorant, oblivious, or innocent to realize? How many times have we put ourselves and the ones we love in danger, unaware of the darkness lying in wait? We like to believe we can tell the difference between a harmless person and a monster. The terrifying truth is even the most innocuous-looking character can have the most dreadful intentions, hiding behind a friendly smile. It was June of 2000, and Ben, who was 14 at the time, just arrived at his church, where he was attending a Christian youth group. The group did different activities, some for fun and some for the betterment of the community, while also acting as a summer daycare for working parents. Ben was excited to see his friends and hurried to find them. In the mass of teenagers standing in the parking lot of the church, waiting for instructions, were his 3 friends, Kevin, Willis, and Luke. All that the teens knew was that they would be getting dirty that day and would be doing some cleaning. After waiting for some time, the herd was split into groups for carpool, and they finally all piled in their respective vehicles. On the way to their unknown destination, Ben and his cohorts discussed what service they would be fulfilling, with all of them hoping it would be something interesting. This would be a day of cleaning they would not and could not forget. The caravan of cars carrying the Christian teens pulled into the suburbs of Santa Ana. The leaders of each group then instructed their youths they would be cleaning the home of an elderly man who was unable to do so for himself. Ben asked his group leader how they had come upon this man in such need of dire help. He was then told how one of the church officials saw him fall off a bicycle and injure himself. The official, being a kind woman, helped him up and into her car, giving him a ride home. While assisting him into his house, the woman was confronted with years and years of trash that the elderly man had accumulated. Assuming he was just too old and feeble to take care of himself, and learning he had absolutely no living family members, she felt she had to do something for this helpless old man. In steps the crew of teens that would act as free labor for the day. When Ben entered the home, he was assaulted by a number of horrible smells and more trash in a home than he had ever seen. This wasn't just a hoarding problem. The first room of the house was filled with plates of food, cups of molding liquids, soiled, rotten clothing, and miscellaneous trash scattered into piles around the room. Sitting in an old, decrepit armchair in the middle of the room was the old man himself, greeting each new volunteer with a kind yet disheveled smile. Even though it was a hot summer day, the man was wearing thick, heavy sweatpants and a winter coat. He looked and smelled as if he hadn't showered in decades. As Ben passed by the man, he noticed the chair was stained from years and years of the man urinating in that spot. The counselor then told the boys how the man had mutilated his own genitalia in a chainsaw accident and could no longer control his bladder. This made the boys pity the aged man even more than before. Each group of teens were given an area to clean and sanitize, Ben and friends being designated to the first bedroom. The group of young men divided the room into 3 separate sections and started cleaning. Ben and Kevin were working on the closet. Luke had the floor and 2 large dressers, and Willis was cleaning off the bed. Luke opened one of the doors of the dresser to find a dildo the size of an adult forearm. After showing the rest of the guys what he had found, they started opening the rest of the drawers out of a disgusted curiosity. All of the drawers in both dressers were filled to the brim with sex toys and fetish material. Once Willis started cleaning the bed, he realized it was piled 3 feet high with porn magazines from the 70s to the 90s. The 4 boys decided to work on the closet as they didn't want to get caught with any of the pornographic material when the counselor returned back to check on them. While going through the closet, the boys found a foam cutout in the shape of a woman with a hole cut in the crotch. The mock woman was covered in mysterious stains, and some obvious ones. Just then, one of the counselors entered the room, and the boys shared what they had found. The counselor, at a loss for words, just instructed the boys to continue cleaning, but to stay away from the adult material as best as possible. He then left, and shortly returned to tell the boys the room that they were cleaning was rented by a young woman some many years previous, while the old man's wife was still alive. When his wife passed, the female renter supposedly constructed the foam companion for him. They resumed cleaning while being cautious of what they would possibly find next. As they filled the trash bags with random debris from the stuffed closet, Ben noticed the old man was standing in the doorway staring at him. "Make sure you stay out of those dresser drawers," the old man said with a crooked smile, ending with a chuckle, then shuffling down the hall. As he waddled away, they all noticed he was urinating himself and trailing it down the hall as he traveled. The boys were a little grossed out but pitied him, and were mostly amused at the thought of this obviously sexually active woman living with a pervy old man. But what they found next turned the mood from amusement to fear and worry. Wrapped in a brownish-red stained apron, they found a purse with not only the identifications of the woman who rented the room, but also all of her official papers and documents such as her birth certificate and social security card. This made them all very uneasy. Why would she leave all of that important information there? And why was it wrapped in an apron covered in what looked like dried blood? Not sure what to do, the boys decided to take a break and get some fresh air in the backyard. While in the backyard, they noticed a large shed with no doors. Giving into curiosity, they entered to find dozens of clear jars filled with strange-looking fluids and one with a handful of teeth. They came running out of the shed to find Willis staring at the lawn. "What does that look like to you guys?" he uttered while gesturing to a rectangular bald spot in the grass, about the size of a person. The four of them stood there transfixed on the bare area of the lawn as the theories of sinister deeds circled their minds. Standing there frozen in shock, the boys were finally brought back to lucidity by a concerned counselor. They then told the counselor of all the worrying evidence they had come upon. The supervising adult immediately began his own investigation. After seeing all of the items the boys spoke of, a meeting between all of the counselors was called. While the adults discussed the situation, the four boys visited the other groups of cleaners, asking each about what they had found. Sex toys were found in every room of the house, including the refrigerator, washer and dryer, dishwasher, and numerous drawers in the kitchen. The peculiar fluid in cups and jars was also a continuing theme of the home. Condoms were also found in almost every room, some filled with urine and tossed into random areas of the home. The old man had broken the toilet a few months before, so he had been using the tub as a latrine. Multiple petrified rats were found along with lots of roaches and other insects. In the garage, someone opened an old refrigerator, letting out so many flies that they blocked out the ceiling fixture light for a couple seconds, turning the garage completely dark. The pantry in the kitchen was stacked to the ceiling with hundreds of porn magazines, but no food. Molding food containers and soiled clothing covered close to every inch of the floor. Not one person who volunteered that day made it through without vomiting. When the counselors finally ended their meeting, they immediately informed everyone that the entire group would be quickly packing up and leaving. Ben asked his group's counselor what they had decided to do, and was merely informed that the police had been called and they were to leave as soon as possible. The group of youths poured out of the house and into the cars they had arrived in. Once back at the church, the teens were reunited with their parents and guardians, who had all been contacted by the church office to come pick up the children early. Most parents were visibly upset about this change in their schedule, but were appalled when they learned what their children had been exposed to that day. Many parents were heard by Ben threatening to sue the church for negligence. Only Ben's and his friends' parents would hear the full extent of the nightmarish clues found by the boys. A couple weeks passed by when Ben finally asked a couple of the counselors if they knew what happened with the old man. To his dismay, the counselors would only answer, "We aren't allowed to talk about it." What could be the reason for their silence? Could there have been a lawsuit by a parent or group of parents? Were the church staff instructed by their superiors to never discuss it out of embarrassment? Or was there something ominous that occurred at the old man's residence? Something being investigated by authorities, therefore keeping any church employees from sharing any part of their experience. Learning any new information will be quite difficult, as we don't know the name of the old man, or the female renter, or the exact location of the home. We have so far been unable to find any reports of human remains being found in the backyard of an elderly man's home around that time in that area. Could this all have been a huge misunderstanding? Was the old man truly what he seemed, a harmless, decrepit old man who simply stopped caring about cleanliness and had a powerful porn addiction? Did the sexually empowered woman plainly leave all her important documents and information out of a rush to move or a need to start over? As this is possible, it seems with the apparent evidence, it is more likely there was a deplorable act committed. Why was this woman's purse jammed with all her legal records, wrapped in a seemingly blood-stained apron and buried in the back of a closet? Where did all those teeth in the jar come from? And what was the bare rectangle of dirt in the grass? Was this old man senile and could no longer remember what was real and what was fantasy? Or could he have been aware he was alerting the outside world to his dark deeds and somehow enjoying it, reveling in the disgust and fear of the young volunteers cleaning his home of depravity and malevolence? One thing is sure, when you offer a helping hand, make sure it's not the devil you're reaching for.